You get up every day doing everything you can to make your dreams come true. And then one day, the worst thing in the world happens to you. Or it does not look like the worst thing. It looks like a wet curb. It looks like a handrail coming loose in a stairwell. It looks like a doctor closing a folder. It looks like a truck making a turn 2 seconds early. Or a clock in a kitchen ticking over from 11:58 to 11:59, while someone in the next room is trying to remember where they left their reading glasses. The worst thing in the world is sometimes very quiet. Sometimes it is so ordinary that afterward the people who loved you become angry at the furniture, at the weather, at the eggs left boiling on the stove, at the stupid little receipt in your pocket for cough drops in a line. You had plans. You had almost called your sister back. You had a coat at the cleaner. You had a person you meant to forgive once they apologized correctly. You had a book half read beside the bed, spine down, pages tented like a small house. You had a life, which is to say you had made arrangements with the future. Tonight, those arrangements have been broken in several cities and one county fairground, in a shuttered theater on Lake Superior, in a college library in Missoula, and in a yellow room where a daughter painted the baseboards herself because her mother always hated white trim. I have the names in front of me. I have the times where the times were given. I have the survivors, the occupations, the street corners, the strange belongings, and the things nobody at the desk knew what to do with. The day has crossed over now. Good morning, and welcome to this day in deaths. To Corinne Applewhite. At 11:42 p.m. Pacific Time, in Sacramento, California, Corinne Applewhite, 31, was killed when her bicycle was struck by a delivery van outside the shuttered side entrance of Mariposa Florist on J Street. Corinne was the assistant night manager of the Grey Finch Hotel, where she was known for taping hand-drawn birds to the housekeeping carts when the staff had birthdays. She had been taking online classes in children's illustration, though according to her mother, she called them my fake art school whenever anyone asked how they were going. In the top drawer of her desk at the hotel, she kept 3 black pens, a packet of honey, a receipt for orthopedic shoes, and an envelope labeled Bad Owls. Her supervisor said Corinne was leaving work early because the hotel's boiler had gone out and the night audit computer was frozen. She had a gray cat named County, a younger brother in Reading, and a mother, Judith Applewhite, who said Corinne could draw any animal except horses, which always came out looking disappointed. At the time of her death, Corinne was carrying a water-damaged copy of a children's book called The Map of Elsewhere in the wire basket of her bicycle. The book was returned to her family along with her keys, her phone, and a paper bag containing 2 oranges. 03 Ambrose K. Welliver. In Millersburg, Ohio, Ambrose K. Welliver, 78, died of heart failure while watching a televised auction of antique globes. Mr. Welliver taught geography at Millersburg Central High School for 39 years and was remembered by former students for pronouncing archipelago as if it were both a warning and a blessing. He owned 2 atlases from before the Second World War, a wall map of South America that had faded to nearly pink, and 214 hand-drawn maps of places he had never visited. His wife, Marlene, said he had left Ohio only once in 1986 to attend a funeral in Kentucky where he developed an immediate distrust of the hotel ice machine and refused to sleep under the bedspread. Mr. Welliver believed every person had one country they belonged to. He told his grandson, Devin, that his was Portugal, though he disliked fish, sun, wine, olives, tiled roofs, and most music involving guitars. He is survived by Marlene, by 3 sons, by 7 grandchildren, and by a shoebox-marked islands, which his family has not yet opened. 04 Delbert Spoon. In Calaveras County, California, Delbert Spoon, 56, died during a pie-eating contest at the St. Bartholomew Volunteer Fire Department Harvest Fair. Mr. Spoon was a former automobile repossession agent, a part-time fireworks salesman, and for 1 month in 2003, the owner of a tanning salon called Bronze Ambition. He was not widely described as gentle. His sister Lynette said he had once borrowed her emergency fund to buy a jet ski he later described as church-related. He had 2 ex-wives, both of whom declined to comment, a storage unit in Stockton containing novelty beer signs, and a green parrot named Admiral Gary, who reportedly knew several phrases not suitable for broadcast. Mr. Spoon collapsed during the Blueberry Division, after insisting on entering despite having already won the Apple Division 40 minutes before. Witnesses reported that his final words were, "I can win this." The trophy was awarded posthumously and has been placed beside his photograph at the funeral home, though the family has asked that no one bring pie. Nadine Van Orman. At 11:29 p.m. Pacific Time in San Francisco, Nadine Van Orman, 24, was struck by a car at the intersection of 11th and Dempsey while walking home from her shift at Starling and Crumb Bakery. The report reached us shortly after midnight from a listener whose apartment overlooks the intersection. He wrote that Nadine was wearing a brown wool coat and carrying a white bakery box tied with string. The box was later found under a parked car. Inside were 4 almond horns, 2 broken, and 1 pastry labeled with a name that was not hers. Nadine was born in Tucson and raised partly in Bisbee by her grandmother, Willa Van Orman, who taught her how to hem pants, how to fry potatoes in bacon grease, and how to identify silverfish in old books. She moved to San Francisco 3 years ago, first to work for a cousin's catering company, then to take the bakery job, which began at 4 in the afternoon and ended whenever the croissants were counted, the mixer bowls were washed, and the owner stopped pretending he did not need help with the register. She sent money every month to her grandmother, always in odd amounts. She sent money every month to her grandmother, said the numbers were private jokes from childhood. 23 was the number of stairs to the attic. 41 was the number on the mailbox of the first house where Nadine remembered feeling safe. $17.06 was nobody's business. Nadine had recently become engaged to a man named Mateo Ruiz, a municipal electrician, though she had not yet told her father. Mateo said Nadine was waiting for the right dinner, the right mood, the right version of herself, not tired, not distracted, not smelling of yeast and sugar, not calculating rent while someone else was talking. She wanted to visit Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, because her great-grandfather, Ephraim Van Orman, had worked there for 1 season on a fishing boat before deserting, changing his name and traveling south by train. Nadine had no proof of this except a family story, a photograph of a man beside a barrel, and a postcard that read, "In pencil, I have seen the water and it does not know me." She was afraid of deep water. She liked tide pools, harbors, postcards, ferry terminals, painted boats, and maps. She did not like swimming. Mateo said she could become frightened just looking at a dark lake from the highway. After her death, police returned her coat to her father, Leon Van Orman. Inside the lining, written in black marker along the seam, were the names of places Nadine hoped to go. Some were real. Yarmouth, Trieste, Ely, Tobermory, Bar Harbor, Alicent. Marfa, some were not clear. One appeared to be the green room. One was only after. The last word, written near the left cuff, was elsewhere. Nadine Van Orman is survived by her father, Leon, her grandmother, Willa, 2 half-sisters, Maura and Kit, her fiancé, Mateo, and by a jar of kitchen-labeled boat, though there was only 30 cents inside. 06, Brother Matthew and Inez Taller. There are some deaths that arrive at the desk with less violence in them, though not less life. In Des Moines, Iowa, Evelyn Cusk, 91. Died after a long illness in a room her eldest daughter painted yellow because Evelyn had once said yellow was the color of people trying. Mrs. Cusk tuned pianos for most of her adult life and continued to carry a tuning fork in her purse after she lost much of her hearing at 63. She is survived by 2 daughters, a son in Albuquerque, 11 grandchildren, and a Mason and Hamlin upright piano that no one in the family can play without apologizing first. In Little Pines, Vermont, Brother Matthew of the Small Pines, 84, died in hospice under the name he had used for 52 years. Before entering the monastery, he was Paulie Brackett, a minor league catcher for the Elmira Pioneers. He kept his old catcher's mitt on the shelf beside his breviary, and according to the brothers, oiled it every spring. And in Merced, California, Inez Taller, 102, died in her sleep after outliving every sibling, 3 husbands, 4 doctors, 2 churches, 1 language she refused to admit she had forgotten, and every enemy she ever named. Her granddaughter said Mrs. Taller's last full sentence was, Do not let Donna have the good ladder. Donna, for the record, is her niece. The ladder remains in dispute. 07 Ferris Bellwether Noon. In Duluth, Minnesota, at 10:06 p.m. Central Time, Ferris Bellwether Noon 43 fell from the roofline of the Meridian Theater while attempting to repair a loosened marquee letter before the theater's planned reopening. I will give that sentence again in a slower shape, because some lives need a wider doorway than the report gives them. Ferris Bellwether Noon died because the second E had come loose. The Meridian Theater stands on West Superior Street, between a tax office and a storefront that has been in order a jeweler, a travel agency, a vape shop, a Lutheran bookstore, and nothing. The theater opened in 1931 with the ceiling painted midnight blue and a lobby carpet patterned with gold vines. Its original owner, Marius Kett, claimed the stars in the ceiling were placed according to the night sky over Duluth on the evening his wife accepted his proposal. This was not true. The stars were arranged by a man from St. Paul who had never met the Ketts and who reused the same pattern in 6 other theaters. Still, Ferris told the proposal story on every tour. His grandfather, Ansel Noon, bought the Meridian in 1954 after returning from the Korean War with a limp, a silver lighter, and what his wife called a permanent disagreement with silence. Ansel ran newsreels, romances, westerns, monster pictures, matinees for children, midnight screenings for college students, and one disastrous week of Italian neorealism that Ferris's mother claimed nearly bankrupted the family spiritually. The Noon family lived above the theater for 18 years. Ferris's mother, Alma Noon, sold tickets from a booth with curved glass and a brass speaking hole. His father, Dane Noon the Elder, changed bulbs, argued with distributors, and kept a bottle of rye behind a panel in the projection room, where Ferris later found it untouched, the tax stamp still sealed. The liquid inside turned the color of weak tea. Ferris grew up in the building. He slept through cartoons in the back row, learned multiplication by counting seats, and believed until age 9 that all families owned red curtains. During blizzards, when the sidewalks disappeared and the lake became a dark animal breathing behind the city, Alma read to him in the balcony from a children's book called The Map of Elsewhere. It was about a girl who found a map with no countries on it, only rooms she had been afraid to enter. The cellar of bees, the orchard of unasked questions, the station where nobody waves, the city of almost, the bed. Ferris loved the page showing a theater in the middle of a forest. In the illustration, animals sat in the audience wearing human coats, opera glasses. A bear had fallen asleep. A small deer in the front row was crying, though the stage was empty. Alma wrote an inscription inside Ferris's copy, or Ferris believed she did. The family disagreed on this point for years. Ferris remembered the inscription as clearly as he remembered the smell of the balcony seats in winter. For Ferris, who will someday learn the difference between leaving and arriving. His mother said she had written no such thing. His father said it sounded like something Alma would write and then deny. Ferris's younger brother, Dane, said Ferris invented half his childhood and improved the other half. The book disappeared in the basement flood of 2009, along with a popcorn machine, 2 velvet ropes, the tax records for 1978 through 1984, and a cardboard standee for a romantic comedy no one could identify because the faces had mildewed away. Then was mostly closed, not dead. Ferris objected to that word for buildings. He said a closed building was not dead until people stopped giving directions by it. Turn left at the Meridian. Park behind the Meridian. It's across from where the Meridian is. As long as the theater remained useful as a way to describe the world, Ferris believed it was still in the world. He inherited the building at 34 along with debt, asbestos, 3 bank accounts containing almost nothing, and his mother's habit of touching the box office glass whenever she entered the lobby. By then, Alma had arthritis in both hands and could no longer tear tickets without pain. She moved to a senior apartment with a view of the shipping canal and called the theater your father's beautiful mistake, though it had belonged to her side of the family. Ferris worked days as a dispatcher for a medical transport company. He spent evenings at the Meridian. He replaced broken tiles with ones bought from salvage yards. He learned basic plaster repair from videos. He wrote grant applications. He gave tours to architecture students for $12 a person and let them stay too long if they asked about the ceiling. In winter, he wore fingerless gloves inside and kept a thermos of coffee balanced on the concession counter. He was not a practical man, but he was not careless. This distinction mattered to him. His brother Dane, who sold insurance in Eau Claire, called him romantically doomed, usually while loaning him money. Alma called him my sweet bellwether, which Ferris hated until he turned 37 and began using his full name on invoices, complaint letters, city forms, and once a dating profile that produced no replies. Ferris Bellwether Noon. His mother had chosen Bellwether after reading an article about sheep farming in a dentist's office while pregnant. She thought it meant the one who finds the way. Later she learned it meant the sheep the others follow because a bell has been put around its neck. Ferris preferred her definition. The reopening was not meant to save the meridian. He knew better than that. The roof still leaked. The heating system worked only in a moral sense. Half the balcony was unsafe. The city had concerns. The insurance company had stronger concerns. The bank had written letters whose politeness had become threatening. But Ferris wanted one winter night. One. He wanted the marquee lit with all the bulbs burning. He wanted popcorn in the lobby and snow melting from people's boots. He wanted Celeste Quayle to play piano before the show, though the piano was out of tune and Celeste had not played publicly since her divorce. He wanted his mother in the box office again, not selling tickets, just sitting there in her blue coat behind the curved glass. He wanted to show an old animated film adaptation of the Map of Elsewhere, a film no one remembered fondly except a few people who had seen it sick at home in the 1980s and believed afterward that they had dreamed it. Ferris had located a print through a collector in Winnipeg. The print was scratched, pink at the edges, and missing the last 2 minutes. Ferris said that was perfect. No one ever gets all of Elsewhere. On the morning before the reopening, he changed the marquee himself. Tonight only the Map of Elsewhere, 7:30 p.m. Dane drove in from Eau Claire and told him the whole thing was insane. Alma cried when she saw the sign, and then became angry because Ferris had forgotten to sweep the sidewalk. Celeste Quayle arrived with sheet music in a canvas bag and spent 20 minutes in the lobby touching the piano keys without pressing them. At 8:40 p.m., a wind came off the lake. Those who live near Lake Superior know that wind as a local authority. It moved trash cans down alleys. It snapped one of the event posters from the door and sent it sliding under a parked Subaru. It pried at the marquee letters until the second E in Elsewhere came loose and tipped forward. Ferris saw it from the sidewalk, the Map of Elsewhere. Dane told him no one would care. Ferris said, that is the whole word. Dane said, it is one letter. Ferris said, in that word, one letter is the lift had been returned that morning. The ladder was inside. The safest thing would have been to wait, or to cancel the photographs, or to let the sign be wrong, or to accept that no one standing in the snow looking up at a half-broken theater would demand typographical perfection from a man already losing money. But Ferris had spent his life inside a building where small details pretended to be portals. A ticket stub, a curtain rope, a brass-speaking hole, a painted star that was not really the star under which anyone had promised anything to anyone, but might as well have been if the story was better that way. He climbed. The police report says the fall was approximately 16 feet. It says he struck the lower ledge before reaching the sidewalk. It says Dane Noon called 911. It says snow had begun to fall by the time emergency medical services arrived. It does not say that Alma remained in the box office, where she had gone to get warm and did not understand at first why the people outside were running. It does not say that Celeste Quayle sat at the piano and pressed one key, middle C, over and over, not loudly, not musically, while Dane stood in the vestibule with blood on his coat. It does not say that the fallen E landed face up near the curb. Ferris Bellwether Noon is survived by his mother, Alma, his brother, Dane, his niece, Juniper Celeste Quayle, who had agreed to play Moon River in the lobby, though Ferris had requested pure imagination, and by the Meridian Theatre, which remains closed. Inside were ticket stubs, bulbs, a cracked flashlight, 3 unopened packs of napkins, a program from 1962, one of Alma's blue gloves, and a water-damaged copy of the Map of Elsewhere. Dane thought it was Ferris's lost copy. It was not. Inside the front cover, in blue marker, was written, Corinne Applewhite Room 214 Greyfinch Hotel. No one in the Noon family knew Corinne Applewhite. No one at the Greyfinch Hotel knew Ferris Noon. There is no record that Corinne ever visited Duluth, and no record that Ferris ever stayed in Sacramento. The book is now with Alma Noon. She has not opened it past the inscription. 08 Hollis Van. In Santa Fe, New Mexico, Hollis Van, 67, died of a stroke in a private dining room at the Candelaria Club 3 days before sentencing in a fraud case involving imaginary lakefront property. Mr. Van sold parcels in a development called Blue Mercy Shores. Brochures showed docks, walking trails, herons, families in linen, a boathouse, and a lake described as seasonal. According to court documents, the lake did not exist seasonally or otherwise. Many of his clients were elderly. Several invested retirement money. One couple sold a house in Nebraska. Mr. Van's attorneys argued that he believed the development could become real if sufficient capital was raised. Prosecutors used the phrase geographically impossible. Mr. Van was born Hollis Vangelisti in Reno and changed his name in 1988. He owned 11 watches, 4 framed maps, and a mahogany desk too large for every office he put it in. In the top drawer, investigators found a fountain pen, antacids, 2 passports, and a child's drawing of a lake with no water in it. He is survived by his 3rd wife, Brielle, by one son, Graham, who had not spoken to him in 11 years, and by several hundred people who are not expected to recover their savings. On the wall of his dining room was a hand-painted sign that read, "The future is a place you buy before others see it." The sign has been taken down. 09 all a minute. A listener in Missoula sent us the next name just after 1 this morning. I'm going to read it, because that is how names enter the room here. Sometimes through hospitals, sometimes through funeral homes, sometimes through newspapers, sometimes through a stranger awake with a phone in her hand because she does not know what else to do with what she has just learned. Earlier today, at the Gallatin Community College Library, Orla Minnow, 19, died after a seizure while shelving returned books in the North Stacks. Orla was a student worker, a first-year archivist in her own imagination, and according to her girlfriend Samara, the only person who could make dust sound like a calling. She wore cardigans with pockets large enough for index cards. She carried pencils behind both ears and forgot they were there. She kept a list in her phone titled, "Things Found in Books." The list included pressed violets, a photograph of a dog wearing sunglasses, $2 Canadian a quart, summons a motel key from 1974. A grocery list containing only ham, glue, apology of Valentine signed from probably me, a dead moth. A map of Yellowstone with one restroom circled angrily a note that said, "Do not trust Malcolm about the canoe." Orla was born in Missoula 6 minutes after her twin brother Peter, who called her my older sister anyway because he said she arrived with more authority. Her parents, Elise and Marco Minnow, run a picture-framing shop. The family name was shortened from Minowich by Orla's great-grandfather, who came through Ellis Island with a violin, a fever, and a written address for a cousin in Chicago, who had moved to Butte 6 months earlier. Orla liked abandoned bookmarks, municipal seals, old handwriting, and the names of towns that sounded invented but were not. Opportunity, Montana; Accident, Maryland; Waterproof, Louisiana; Embarrass, Minnesota. She was shelving in juvenile fiction when she collapsed. The last book she checked in before she died was The Map of Elsewhere. The copy belonged to the college's children's literature collection and had been missing for 9 years. It was returned through the overnight slot with no note. On the due date card, the last stamped name before the book disappeared was not a student's name. It was not a faculty name. The librarian told our listener that old manual cards are not reliable, that books circulate in strange ways, that names are borrowed, misspelled, stamped in error, written as jokes. Still, the name was there. Ferris B. Noon. 10 the coat. There is one more item before we close. It returns us to San Francisco, to 11th and Dempsey, to the brown wool coat of Nadine Van Orman. Her father, Leon, received the coat in a plastic property bag. He did not open it for 2 days. When he did, he found what the police had already noted, place names written along the lining in black marker, some near the hem, some under the pocket flap, some almost hidden inside the cuff. Yarmouth, Trieste, Ely, Tobermory, Bar Harbor, Alizund, Marfa, the Green Room, after. Elsewhere. There was also one word the police had not listed because it did not look like a destination. Ferris. Leon thought it might be a man. Mateo Ruiz thought so too, for one painful hour, until he remembered something Nadine had told him when they were first falling in love and still staying up too late because sleep seemed rude. When Nadine was 6, she invented a city called Ferris. She drew it on butcher paper with blue crayon. Ferris had a theatre, a bakery, a library, a train station, 7 bridges, no hospital, and a rule that nobody had to say goodbye in a hurry. You could leave, but the train would wait until you found the right words. You could arrive late, but everyone you needed would still be at the platform, wearing coats in whatever weather you had imagined for them. Her grandmother saved the map for years and lost it in a move. Nadine forgot the city, then remembered it, then began writing it with the other places. Ferris, not a man. Not only a man. A city a child had drawn before she knew there were cities that took people away from you, and cities that did not give them back. At the Meridian Theatre in Duluth, Al Manoon has the water-damaged copy of the map of Elsewhere on her kitchen table. She has not opened it past Corinne Applewhite's name, but her granddaughter Juniper has. Children are less afraid of evidence. On page 32, in the illustration of the theatre in the forest, someone has drawn a small blue train in the aisle between the animal seats. It is not part of the printed picture. It was added in crayon years ago by an unknown hand. Above the train, in child letters, is written, "Wait." 11 closing roll call. Tonight, we remember Corinne Applewhite, who carried a ruined book through Sacramento. Ambrose K. Welliver, who mapped countries he did not visit. Delbert Spoon, who believed at the end that he could still win. Nadine Van Orman, who wrote destinations into the lining of her coat. Evelyn Cusk, who kept a tuning fork after the music went quiet. Brother Matthew, once Paulie Brackett, who oiled his catcher's mitt every spring. Inez Tallow, who did not want Donna to have the good ladder. Ferris Bellwether Noon, who wanted the sign spelled correctly. Hollis Varn, who sold maps to a lake that was not there. And Orla Minnow, who found things in books. The day is over now. The clocks will begin again without them. This has been This Day in Deaths. Good night.